Welcome back to another episode of r/Topposts, where the search for peace sometimes ends in panic. And today's story might be the wildest yet. Imagine walking into a spa for a 90-minute massage. You've had a rough week, your muscles are tight, and you're craving just 1 hour of relief. Soft music, warm oils, a cozy table. Everything's perfect. Until suddenly, it's not. Instead of feeling lighter, you feel wet, hot, unbelievably gross. Because your massage therapist just vomited. Yes, vomited on your back, neck, and head like a human fire hose. And it wasn't a little burp gone wrong. It was a full-body eruption. Now the real twist. The spa still demanded payment for the full session. So here's the question. Would you pull out your wallet after getting doused in digestive doom? Or would you run for your life like our OP did? Let's get into it. OP, a 41-year-old woman, isn't the type to splurge on luxuries. She's a working mom, stuck behind a desk for hours each day, juggling spreadsheets and stress. But what most people don't know is that she lives with chronic neck and back pain, tight muscles that throb through her sleep and flare up at random. It's the kind of discomfort that wears you down day by day until everything feels heavy. Massage therapy is her one escape. The only time she doesn't feel like her body is betraying her. Every session feels like a small reset, a physical, emotional, and mental release. It's not a treat, it's maintenance, a lifeline. She looks forward to it all week, books her appointments early, drinks water, stretches before and after. She takes it seriously because it's the only thing that's worked. So when she arrived for her usual 90-minute massage, she wasn't chasing luxury. She was chasing relief. The spa itself felt like sanctuary. Soft ambient music echoed through the halls like a lullaby, blending with the gentle trickle of a water feature near the front desk. The air was warm, scented with lavender and eucalyptus, and the lighting was dim, just enough to hush your senses into relaxation. Every voice was a whisper, every footstep padded. OP checked in, removed her shoes, and was guided to a private massage room where the lights were low, the sheets were clean, and the table was heated. It was everything she needed. Her massage therapist, a woman in her early 30s with a calm presence and professional demeanor, introduced herself politely. She asked the standard questions: problem areas, pressure preferences, allergies. Everything felt routine, normal. As OP lay on the table, face down, she let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She was finally here. No emails, no meetings, no noise. Just silence, warmth, and two hands slowly working through knots of stress that had hardened into pain. With each minute, her thoughts slowed. Her muscles loosened. The familiar rhythm of pressure and release lulled her into that rare meditative state where you stop existing as a person and start feeling like floating energy. For once, she wasn't tense. She wasn't hurting. She wasn't trying. She was just okay. About 20 minutes into the massage, something changed. The therapist had just finished working on OP's shoulders and was moving toward her upper back when OP heard a sound. Low, quick, almost like a hiccup crossed with the throat clear. It wasn't alarming, but it wasn't part of the usual massage experience either. OP lifted her head slightly and asked, "Everything all right?" The therapist replied, "Yeah, just a little tickle in my throat," followed by a forced laugh that didn't quite land. She continued the massage, and OP tried to settle back into that relaxed state. Though the shift was subtle and undeniable, there was a change in the room's energy. The therapist's movements seemed a little less smooth, a little more distracted. Her breathing was heavier now, audible and slightly erratic. Still, OP brushed it off. Everyone has off days, right? But then she felt it, just for a moment, a pause in the massage. The hands lifted. A silence. A stillness. Then footsteps, quick and sudden, pacing. A shuffle. A breath held too long. It wasn't enough to panic yet, but the atmosphere had cracked. The spa's perfect calm was starting to unravel, and OP was about to find out just how wrong things could go. Then it happened. In an instant, the therapist's body convulsed. A loud, uncontrollable heave broke the room's fragile silence. Before OP could react, a sudden explosive spray of vomit shot out, projectile and unstoppable, covering her back, neck, and even dripping onto her hair. The smell hit immediately, sharp and sour. OP's heart jumped in terror. Her body froze for a second, stunned by the shock and revulsion. Warm, sticky liquid soaked through her clothes and pooled on the table. The therapist was clearly overwhelmed, turning away and stumbling toward the door. OP tried to pull herself together, but the mixture of confusion and disgust overwhelmed her senses. Her mind screamed, "Why is this happening?" Her stomach churned in response, the nausea threatening to join the mess. Her breathing became shallow and erratic. Tears pricked at her eyes, not from pain, but humiliation. How could this be happening during something meant to heal her? The therapist barely managed an apology, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened." Then she rushed out, leaving OP alone, drenched and frozen on the table. The room felt cold now, the soft music drowned out by the pounding of OP's heartbeat. The walls seemed to close in as she sat there, dripping, stunned, trying to process the surreal horror of what just unfolded. Minutes passed like hours. The helplessness was suffocating. She wanted to scream, to run, but all she could do was sit and feel the sticky mess weighing her down, both physically and emotionally. This was supposed to be her moment of relief. Instead, it had turned into a nightmare she never expected. After what felt like forever, the therapist returned, this time with a stack of spa towels and a bottle of water. Her face was pale and apologetic, but her actions were hurried and awkward. She tried to clean OP off, dabbing here and there, but it was clear she didn't know how to handle the mess she'd made. OP stayed still, trying to keep her composure, but inside she felt small, exposed, and humiliated. The towels barely helped. The vomit was everywhere, soaking into her skin and clothes, the smell lingering no matter how much she wiped. She could feel the spa's calm shatter around her like glass. Despite the therapist's efforts, the cleanup felt inadequate, more of a band-aid on a much deeper wound. OP was left with a bitter taste in her mouth, not just from the smell, but from the loss of dignity. She wanted to leave immediately, to get home, to wash away this nightmare. But the situation dragged on longer than she wanted, the spa staff hovering nearby, watching with awkward sympathy. All OP wanted was to disappear, to be clean, and to forget that this had ever happened. Instead, she was stuck in a mess that wasn't hers to make. Gathering what little strength she had left, OP quietly dressed, hoping to slip out without drawing attention. She moved slowly, every step weighed down by the sticky mess still clinging to her skin and clothes. The spa that once felt peaceful now seemed cold and judgmental. Just as she reached the front door, the receptionist's voice stopped her in her tracks. "Excuse me, you need to pay for the full session," she said firmly. OP blinked, stunned. I can't. I want to leave." After what just happened, the receptionist shook her head. It was an accident. You're only canceling now. We can clean you up here and finish your massage if you want. OP's stomach twisted with disbelief. Number, I don't want to stay. I'm covered in vomit. I can't just keep going like this. But the spa staff began to crowd around, insisting she pay for the full 90 minutes. You booked the time. You need to honor it, one said. A tense argument started. OP tried to explain, but her voice cracked under the weight of her shock and humiliation. The staff seemed more concerned about money than the fact she had been vomited on. Feeling trapped and angry, OP refused to pay, firmly stating she was leaving. The receptionist warned her that she might face consequences for not paying, but OP didn't care. She walked out the door, heart racing, feeling more alone than ever. The fresh air hit her like a wave of relief and dread at the same time. How had a simple massage turned into such a nightmare? OP finally got home and rushed straight to the shower. The warm water was a small comfort against the lingering stickiness and smell. She scrubbed furiously, desperate to wash away not just the vomit, but the whole experience. As the water ran, her body trembled uncontrollably. Dry heaving seized her, her stomach still twisted from shock and disgust. Anxiety tightened its grip, making it hard to breathe. She felt vulnerable and raw, emotions spilling over like a dam breaking. Sitting on the bathroom floor, wrapped in a towel, OP let herself cry quietly. The humiliation, the confusion, the betrayal, it was all overwhelming. She had sought healing and instead received trauma. Slowly, the reality sank in. This wasn't just an accident. It was a violation of her trust, a breach of care she never expected. The thought of paying for this ordeal felt impossible. OP's mind raced, wondering what to do next. Could she report this? Would anyone believe her? And what about the threatening messages she'd started receiving from the spa? The night stretched on, filled with restless thoughts. OP just wanted to feel safe and normal again, but knew that might take a long time. The next day, OP's phone buzzed repeatedly. It was the spa. Several voicemails had piled up overnight, each one more intimidating than the last. A stern voice demanded she return and pay for the full 90-minute massage, accusing her of stealing services. If you don't pay by close of business tomorrow, the message warned, we will be forced to contact the police and pursue legal action. OP's heart pounded. The situation suddenly felt far more serious. Could she actually be charged with theft? It seemed absurd. She had been vomited on and left before finishing the session. How was that stealing? But the more she listened to the messages, the more doubt crept in. What if they really did call the police? What if this nightmare wasn't over yet? Fear gnawed at her, mixing with humiliation and anger. She replayed the voicemail again and again, trying to understand if she had any legal obligation. She even researched online, but nothing about paying for a ruined service came up clearly. OP felt trapped. The spa's aggressive tone made her question everything. Was she really in the wrong? Or were they just trying to scare her into paying? That night, the messages weighed heavy on her mind. She felt powerless against a business that seemed more interested in profit than compassion. The question loomed larger than ever. Should she fight back or give in? In the quiet hours, OP wrestled with her thoughts. Had she overreacted? Was she being unreasonable by refusing to pay? She replayed every moment, the shock, the vomit, the argument, and tried to see her actions through the spa's eyes. Maybe they saw it as a customer canceling last minute. Maybe they thought she abandoned a paid session. But OP knew she hadn't left for convenience. She was physically and emotionally unable to stay. Still, embarrassment crept in. What if people thought she was being difficult? What if she had ruined the therapist's career by making a scene? These doubts made her question her own judgment. At times, she considered going back, apologizing, or at least paying a partial fee to smooth things over. But the very thought made her stomach churn. She couldn't imagine returning to that place where she was humiliated and hurt. Despite being the victim, OP felt ashamed, as if somehow she had caused this nightmare. The mixture of guilt, confusion, and fear made it hard to trust her instincts. In the end, she knew one thing clearly. She deserved respect and care, not threats and humiliation. But standing up for that felt more complicated than she expected. Would doing the right thing mean facing the spa again, or walking away forever? Feeling overwhelmed and unsure of what to do next, OP decided to share her story on Reddit. She posted in a popular community known for discussing bizarre and awkward experiences. Almost immediately, responses flooded in. People empathized, shared their own strange stories, and offered advice. Many commenters assured her that she was not at fault, and that no one should have to pay after being vomited on. Others suggested legal steps she could take, like filing a complaint with Consumer Protection or speaking to a lawyer about harassment and false accusations. Some users even encouraged OP to publicly expose the spa's poor hygiene and treatment, warning others to avoid it. Reading the supportive comments brought a deep sense of relief to OP. For the first time since the incident, she felt heard and validated. But the relief was mixed with lingering confusion and hurt. The event still felt unreal, like a bad dream she couldn't fully wake from. Though the Reddit community's kindness was comforting, OP remained uncertain about what her next move should be. The fear and embarrassment still clung tightly. She knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, but at least now she wasn't facing this alone. The incident left a lasting mark on OP's emotional well-being. What was supposed to be a relaxing and healing experience became a source of anxiety. Even weeks later, she found herself tense in any setting that reminded her of the spa. Quiet rooms, dim lighting, the smell of oils. At night, nightmares haunted her. She couldn't shake the image of being covered in vomit or the shock of the therapist suddenly turning sick. The trauma made it hard to laugh or even talk about what happened without feeling vulnerable. OP's trust in personal care spaces had been shaken. The thought of returning to a spa or massage therapist made her stomach churn. She worried she might avoid these places forever, cutting off a vital source of relief. Recognizing she needed help, OP began researching therapy options. She wanted to process the trauma and rebuild her confidence. Though she wasn't ready to fully confront the experience yet, seeking professional support felt like a small step toward reclaiming her peace. The road to recovery was uncertain, but OP hoped time and help would ease the pain. After all the stress and uncertainty, OP reached a pivotal moment. She realized that her dignity was far more important than any 90-minute massage session. Being covered in vomit was beyond unacceptable, and she wasn't about to let the spa guilt or intimidate her into paying for something so humiliating. This incident became a wake-up call for OP, a moment to stand up for herself and demand respect. She understood that self-worth isn't something to negotiate or compromise, especially in situations where she was clearly the victim. Instead of feeling embarrassed or defeated, OP began reclaiming control over the story. She refused to let the spa's threats or staff's behavior define her experience. This turning point brought a quiet strength. OP felt empowered to protect her boundaries and refuse mistreatment in all forms. Though the whole ordeal was painful and surreal, it taught her an important lesson about self-respect and standing firm, even when it's hard. Now, OP is focused on healing in her own way, knowing that she doesn't owe anyone payment for being treated so poorly. Wow, what a wild ride this story has been. Honestly, it's hard to even imagine walking into a spa for some peace and relaxation, only to end up drenched in vomit. Talk about a totally unexpected and frankly disgusting turn of events. I have to say, OP's decision to refuse payment is not just understandable, it's the only reasonable choice. I mean, who wants to pay for a service that ends with you covered in someone else's puke? That's way beyond the limits of normal customer service. This whole situation crosses so many lines. Hygiene, professionalism, basic human decency. It's a reminder that sometimes people take advantage, and it's important to stand your ground, no matter how awkward or intimidating it feels. At the end of the day, OP did what was right for her mental and physical well-being. She chose dignity over dollars, and that's something we can all respect. So now, I want to leave you with this. What would you do if you were in OP's shoes? Would you pay up, or would you walk away and demand respect? It's a tough spot, but sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that protect our self-worth. Thanks for listening to this story on r/Topposts. Stay tuned for more unbelievable tales, and remember, always stand up for yourself.